He says it's a conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory?
That's what he says to us. Well, how can they be so hypocritical? The Great Reset has been on the cover of Time magazine, and it's a very real thing. Exhibit A, COVID-19, the Great Reset, tied the virus together with this New World Order plan called the Great Reset. Who wrote this? Klaus Schwab. Here he is here. Does he look like a guy who rubs elbows with any commoners, with any normal member of the electorate, any citizens of any countries working blue-collar jobs or even white-collar jobs? No, he's off in the rarefied air of Switzerland at the World Economic Forum. You've heard of Davos, where all the most important people in the whole world meet every year and they plan our future? That's him. That's that. And they want the Great Reset. Here's from the World Economic Forum website. Now is the time for a Great Reset. This was in June 2020. Have a listen to Klaus Schwab himself, how excited he is that now is the time.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight the severe virus, but to shape the system.
There it is. There's the origin point. Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum. And you're going to see in a minute why it all of a sudden exploded everywhere. I'll show you that. But first, let's move on to Build Back Better. Build Back Better appeared in the slogans and catchphrases of many, many, many world leaders all at the same time. Let's have a look at a montage here that was put together by the Daily Mail. So I'm not 100% sure who all these people are. This is Boris Johnson, Build Back Better, in the background. I don't know who this is, but she's got Build Back Better in the background. If you recall, Joe Biden made it a slogan of his campaign, Build Back Better. Here's Canada talking about it. Here's the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Building Back Better. Here's Pakistan. Prime Minister Imran Khan, Build Back Better, if you can see that at the very bottom there. But what does the Daily Mail, or what does the Sun say? The Sun says this is a bizarre new COVID conspiracy theory because Build Back Better slogans around the world, they say, spark fascist regime claims. It's a fascist regime. The World Economic Forum is an organization of the world's largest corporations. And what they do is they try to create public-private partnerships. What was one of the definitions of fascism is a merger of corporation and state. Public-private partnerships are just that, public government, private corporations, partnership, merging. That's why people fear a worldwide takeover by public-private partnerships led by the World Economic Forum and other global organizations. Here is Build Back Better, straight from the World Economic Forum in July 2020. Building Back Better. This one is an action plan for the media, entertainment, and culture industry. But there's others. Why would they need to focus on media, entertainment, and culture? Why? Because it's very important if you're trying to bring in such a terrifying regime as they are trying to bring in with the Great Reset. You need all your cultural leaders and all news media to cover for you. You need them to say, oh, it'll be a wonderful life under this Great Reset plan. We're going to build back better. It's going to be fantastic. You need that in order to sell a plan so dark as their plan is, which I will show you in a minute. All right, so the good news is people totally caught on to the Great Reset and Build Back Better very quickly. As you can see, they're already trying to go out there and run cover for it. But what have they done now in order to maybe throw people off the scent? They've introduced a third phrase. The third phrase is the future we want. Listen to this.
If we do not act now,
decades of development could be lost.
If we do not act now, the 2030 agenda could be out of reach.
Despite all the challenges, this is a historic opportunity
to build back better and greener.
We must raise the bar of ambition
to attain the future we want.
A future that is fair,
safe,
inclusive,
and sustainable.
We are taking concrete actions
to transform declarations into reality.
We are joining forces because we believe that together we are stronger.
Together we can go further.
The future is in our hands.
Will you join us?
The future we want.
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 That was from a UN pledgeathon that all the world leaders zoomed into online. And you heard they just read a script. I call them hostage scripts. They're all handed a script. They all say it. They did this with the coronavirus thing. I covered it. And they've done this with other events as well. They are told what to say. So the question is, ladies and gentlemen, who is telling them what to say? Well, I believe it is, the root of this is, in June 2019, the World Economic Forum and the United Nations formed a strategic partnership. It was because the Sustainable Development Goals, or otherwise known as Agenda 2030, they were failing. The United Nations admitted this. So it brought in a ringer. It teamed up with this organization that represents the world's largest mega corporations. Right here, you can see, if you look at the phrase, the future we want, in July 2020, the World Economic Forum started writing articles using this catchphrase. In September 2020, the United Nations started using it as well. And that is probably because in June 2019, the UN and the World Economic Forum signed this Memorandum of Understanding on Strategic Partnership Framework for the 2030 Agenda. Here's what an organization called FIAN International, and they represent 400 civil society organizations and 40 international networks. For this letter that they co-wrote to denounce the strategic partnership agreement between the World Economic Forum and the UN, they called on the UN to end this relationship. Let me read you a little bit of what they wrote. This agreement between the UN and the World Economic Forum formalizes a disturbing corporate capture of the UN. It moves the world dangerously towards a privatized and undemocratic global governance. Harris Gleckman, a former UN official and senior fellow at the University of Massachusetts, says, quote, "This strategic agreement is a coup for the corporate leaders at Davos, but what does it offer the UN and the international community? This gives some of the most controversial corporations unprecedented access to the heart of the UN, yet it has not even been properly discussed by the UN's country members, and certainly not by the broader public." So there you go. And keep in mind, the United Nations has written, it's this giant hulking bureaucracy full of treaties that they say often are not binding on nations, but nations act as if they are. And there's all kinds of mechanisms that the United Nations can call upon to make these treaties and agreements binding through pressure campaigns, through trade interference and this sort of thing. Binding is as binding does in some senses. So you can see that this is very much in keeping with the definition of fascism, a merger of corporation and state. The national governments apparently did not even get a say in whether or not the UN was going to partner with the World Economic Foundation. And obviously, as they point out, the people, all of us in the nation states, we got no say whatsoever.